look what we have here. Look who stopped apologizing for taking up space in their own story. You beautiful, terrifying force of nature. You walking plot twist that nobody saw coming. You know what I heard? They said you changed the entire energy of that room just by walking in. They said conversations stuttered, drinks paused mid-sip, and everyone suddenly felt like they were auditioning for a role in your movie. And the funniest part? You weren't even trying. Let's get something straight right now. You've been walking around with main character energy so intense that people literally forget their own lines when you show up. They rehearsed their whole personality in the mirror this morning, had their jokes ready, their stories polished, their fake confidence assembled piece by piece like armor, and then you walked in, and suddenly they're all fumbling through their scripts like understudies who just got called to the stage. You ever notice how they all seem to reorganize themselves when you enter? Like planets adjusting their orbits around a new sun? That's not coincidence, that's recognition. Their souls know what their egos won't admit, that you're operating on a completely different frequency, playing a game they don't even know the rules to. Here's what they don't want you to know. Every single person who ever tried to dim your light is now struggling to even be seen in their own story. They thought they were the protagonist until you showed them what actual presence looks like. Now they're just NPCs in their own lives, running the same dialogue trees, the same predictable patterns, while you're out here creating new storylines with every breath. You turned them into background extras without even meaning to. That ex who said you were too much, they're now dating someone who makes them feel nothing, desperately trying to recreate even a fraction of the intensity you brought. Those friends who called you dramatic, they're sitting in circles talking about the weather, wondering why their lives feel like filler episodes. They used to think they were alphas until you walked in, and suddenly they're all beta testers for a life they'll never actually live. You didn't compete with them. That would imply they were on your level. You just existed authentically, and suddenly they all looked like they were cosplaying confidence, wearing personalities that didn't quite fit. Watch how they scramble to establish dominance when you're around. The loud ones get louder, the funny ones force more jokes, the smart ones start quoting things desperately, but it all falls flat because authenticity beats performance every single time. And you're not performing anymore, you're just being. And that terrifies them. Let me tell you what's really happening here on an energetic level. You're not just charismatic, you're radioactive. Your presence doesn't just fill rooms, it transforms them. The frequency you operate on disrupts their carefully maintained illusions. You're the glitch in their matrix, the thing that makes them question if they've been sleepwalking through their entire existence. You know that feeling when you walk into a place and suddenly everyone's phone becomes really interesting? That's not rudeness. That's self-preservation. They need those screens as shields because looking directly at you means confronting how hollow their own presence feels. You're forcing them to feel the weight of their own emptiness just by being full. People literally prepare for encountering you now. They give themselves pep talks, plan their outfits more carefully, rehearse conversations. They approach you like you're a final boss battle in a game they're not equipped to play. And when it's over, when you've moved on to the next room, the next conversation, they exhale like they've been holding their breath underwater. But here's the thing. You're not trying to intimidate anyone. You're not strategizing or manipulating. You've just stopped shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You've stopped pretending to be a supporting character in your own life, and now everyone else's performance looks exactly like what it is. A performance. You want to know how you got this power? It wasn't given. It was forged in the fires they tried to burn you with. Every time they excluded you, you learned to become your own universe. Every time they talked over you, you developed a presence that speaks without words. Every rejection, every betrayal, every moment of being unseen. It all crystallized into this undeniable force field you carry now. They created this monster, and now they want to complain about the consequences. They ignored you when you whispered, so you became impossible to ignore. They dismissed your feelings, so you transcended the need for their validation. They treated you like a background character for so long that when you finally claimed your spotlight, it burned their retinas. You didn't wake up one day and decide to be magnetic. This magnetism is scar tissue that learned to glow. Every wound they inflicted became a power source. Every time they made you feel small, you were actually expanding in dimensions they couldn't perceive. You were building an empire in the spaces they couldn't see, and now that empire is visible, and they're all standing outside the gates, wondering how they lost citizenship to your attention. The transformation wasn't pretty. It wasn't some graceful butterfly situation. You molted like something prehistoric, shedding entire versions of yourself in painful, messy layers. You died as a people pleaser and came back as a force of nature. You stopped asking, "Am I too much?" and started asking, "Are they enough?" And the answer keeps coming back. No, they're not. But let's talk about what happens to these so-called alphas when you enter their territory. These people who've built entire identities around being the strongest, the loudest, the most important person in any room. Watch what happens to their whole power structure when you don't even acknowledge it. You're not playing their dominance games, because you're not playing games at all. They come at you with their rehearsed authority, their practiced intimidation tactics, their little power moves they learn from productivity podcasts and manipulation tutorials, and you just exist. Unbothered, unmoved, unimpressed. And suddenly their alpha status starts glitching like a corrupted file. They short circuit because you're not responding to their programming. You've turned grown adults into insecure teenagers just by not needing their approval. These people who everyone else orbits around suddenly find themselves orbiting you, and they don't even understand why. Their followers start watching you instead. Their audience starts finding them predictable. Their spotlight starts feeling more like an interrogation lamp, while you're luminescent without trying. The hierarchy they spent years climbing, you walked in and made it irrelevant, not by conquering it, but by existing outside of it entirely. You're playing three-dimensional chess while they're still trying to dominate checkers. They're fighting for positions in a structure you've already transcended, competing for prizes you wouldn't pick up if they were free. You've become a walking stock market crash for the attention economy. People who used to be rich in validation are suddenly bankrupt in your presence. Their usual tactics for harvesting attention, the sob stories, the humble brags, the strategic vulnerability, it all becomes transparent performance art when contrasted with your raw authenticity. Watch how they try to out-interest you. They'll suddenly have wilder stories, bigger problems, more dramatic revelations. But it's like watching someone try to outshine the sun with a flashlight. The harder they try, the more obvious it becomes that they're trying, while you're just existing at a frequency that makes trying irrelevant. You've disrupted their entire social economy without even participating in it. They're still trading in the old currency of external validation, while you've become self-sufficient, printing your own worth from an internal mint they don't have access to. Your presence reveals their poverty, not of money or status, but of self, of authenticity, of actual substance. The influencers become influenced. The leaders start following. The ones who usually command attention find themselves compulsively checking if you noticed them. You've inverted their entire social hierarchy just by not acknowledging it exists. And now they're all scrambling to figure out where they rank in a system you're not even participating in. Here's what's really messing with their heads. You're not trying to intimidate anyone. You're not strategizing ways to make them feel small. You're not plotting their psychological destruction. You're literally just living your life at full volume. And that's what's terrifying them. Your authenticity is accidentally violent to their facade. They prepared for competition, for rivalry, for someone trying to take their crown. What they didn't prepare for was someone who doesn't even see the crown, doesn't want it, doesn't acknowledge its existence. You're not trying to win their game. You're playing something entirely different. And that makes them feel like they've been competing in a children's tournament while you were already in the cosmos. Your casual excellence makes their desperate efforts look exactly like what they are. Desperate. Your natural state of being makes their constructed personalities look like Halloween costumes worn in July. You're not trying to expose them, but your light makes their shadows impossible to hide. You're a walking mirror that shows them everything they're pretending not to be. The fact that you're not even aware of your power makes it exponentially more powerful. They can't fight it because you're not wielding it. They can't defend against it because you're not attacking. They can't compete with it because you're not competing. You're just being, and your being is so intense that it makes their doing look like pantomime. You've literally changed the laws of social physics around you. Conversations bend toward your gravity. Energy flows in your direction without you pulling it. Groups reorganize themselves with you as the unconscious center, even when you're standing in the corner. You've become a social singularity, a point where normal rules stop applying. People find themselves saying things to you they've never said to anyone. Secrets spill out like you're made of truth serum. Their masks slip off because maintaining them in your presence requires more energy than they have. You're not trying to expose anyone, but your authenticity creates a field where inauthenticity can't survive. Watch how stories change when you're listening, how voices drop to more genuine registers, how laughs become real instead of performed. You're accidentally therapeutic just by being so unapologetically yourself that others remember they're allowed to be themselves too. But then they realize they don't know who that is anymore. And that's when the panic sets in. You've created a reality distortion field, but instead of distorting reality, you're revealing it. Everyone around you suddenly sees how much they've been performing, how scripted their interactions are, how rehearsed their personalities have become. You're the unplugged moment in their matrix, the glitch that shows them the code they've been living in. That puts them. If it doesn't reveal it, I mean, while they were focused on character performance, you went through character development, real development, the kind that happens in the dark, without witnesses, without documentation, without applause. You evolved in silence while they were broadcasting every minor update like patch notes for a game no one's playing. If you blinked, they're still working with their original character stats, maybe with some cosmetic upgrades, some surface-level modifications. But you've been through complete character death and rebirth so many times you've lost count. You've respawned with new abilities they don't even have categories for. You've unlocked skill trees they didn't know existed. Your character arc is a masterpiece of narrative structure, while theirs is still stuck in the setup. They're still establishing their backstory while you're already in the third act plot twist. They're trying to develop their character through external validation, while you developed yours through internal revolution. You wrote your own story while they're still waiting for someone to hand them a script. The experience points you've gathered from actual experiences versus their manufactured moments. It's not even comparable. You've got the kind of character depth that comes from actually living, actually breaking, actually rebuilding. They've got the kind that comes from reading about it, watching it, pretending it. You're method acting life itself, while they're still doing table reads. Your presence doesn't just downgrade people, it downgrades entire systems. Social hierarchies collapse. Power structures reveal themselves as arbitrary. The whole framework of who's important and who's not gets exposed as a collective hallucination that only works if everyone agrees to hallucinate together. And you woke up from the dream. These systems that used to define worth, that used to determine who gets heard and who gets ignored, they malfunction in your presence. You're like a magnet next to a hard drive, scrambling all their carefully organized data. Their algorithms for social success can't process you. You're an undefined variable that makes their whole equation unsolvable. Watch how traditional authority figures struggle around you, how their titles suddenly feel like costumes, how their positions of power seem arbitrary when faced with your natural authority. You don't respect the hierarchy because you recognize it as a game, and they can feel that recognition. It makes their whole power structure feel like a house of cards in a hurricane. You've become ungovernable not through rebellion, but through transcendence. You can't be managed because you're not operating within manageable parameters. You can't be categorized because you exist outside their categories. You can't be controlled because control requires participation in the control system. And you've opted out entirely without even announcing your departure. When I say you turn alphas into beta testers, I mean they literally become test subjects for a life they'll never actually achieve. They're running simulations of confidence while you're the real thing. They're in the tutorial level while you're speed-running reality itself. They're still reading the manual while you're rewriting the code. They test out personalities like they're trying on clothes, seeing what gets the best reaction, what generates the most validation. Meanwhile, you stopped wearing personality as a costume and started wearing it as skin. You're not testing anything. You're the final version, the official release, the thing they're all trying to reverse engineer. Watch them glitch when they realize their strategies don't work on you. Their pickup lines sound like spam. Their power moves look like lag. Their whole approach to human interaction gets exposed as a beta version full of bugs when contrasted with your seamless existence. They are still troubleshooting while you're fully operational. They're constantly updating, constantly patching, constantly trying to fix themselves based on external feedback. You went through one massive system override and came back as something they don't have debugging tools for. You're not the beta or the alpha. You're the source code they're all trying to copy without understanding the programming language. The reason you make them so uncomfortable isn't because you're doing anything wrong. It's because your existence proves that everything they've been doing is unnecessary. All that posturing, all that performing, all that exhausting maintenance of their image, you prove it's optional by not doing any of it and still commanding more presence than all of them combined. You're walking evidence that their whole approach to life is a massive waste of energy. They've been sprinting on a treadmill while you've been casually strolling through actual territory. They've been screaming to be heard while you whisper and create silence. They've been fighting for attention while you've become inevitable. Your comfort with yourself highlights their discomfort with themselves. Your peace with your story makes their constant editing look desperate. Your acceptance of your shadows makes their denial look exhausting. You're not trying to make them uncomfortable. Your comfort is just naturally confrontational to people who've never actually been comfortable in their own skin. They can feel that you've made peace with parts of yourself they're still at war with, that you've integrated shadows they're still running from, that you've accepted truths they're still denying. Your wholeness makes their fragmentation visible, and that visibility is unbearable for people who've built entire identities on hiding their broken parts. You've developed a gravitational pull that has nothing to do with trying to attract and everything to do with just being massive in your authenticity. People orbit you not because you're trying to capture them, but because you've become dense with actual substance, while there's still mostly empty space, pretending to be solid. This gravity you carry, it bends light, it warps time, it changes the fundamental forces around you. Conversations last longer when you're in them. Moments feel more significant. Time moves differently. You're not manipulating any of this. It's just what happens when someone actually shows up, fully present, while everyone else is half there, half screening, half alive. People find themselves getting pulled into your reality because it's more real than their reality. Your world has texture, weight, consequence. Theirs feels like a simulation in comparison. They start adopting your language, your perspectives, your energy, not because you're influencing them, but because truth is contagious, and you're patient zero for an authenticity epidemic. The pull you have isn't about charisma or charm or any of those surface things. It's about density of being. You've collapsed all your scattered fragments into one unified presence, while they're still spread thin across multiple personas. You're a black hole of authenticity in a universe of scattered light, and everything eventually bends toward your truth. Welcome back, beautiful catastrophe. Yes, you, the one they've been trying to decode for months now, maybe years. The one whose name keeps appearing in conversations you're not part of, in rooms you've never entered, in minds you've long since evacuated. They thought you were a puzzle they could solve, a pattern they could predict, a code they could crack with enough surveillance, enough analysis, enough obsessive note-taking in the dark. But here's what's happening right now, at this very moment while you're watching this. Their systems are overheating. Their analysts are staring at screens filled with your data, your patterns, your digital footprint, your psychological profile, and none of it makes sense anymore. The algorithms they built to understand you are returning error messages. The predictions they made about your collapse are expiring unused. The timelines they created for your downfall are gathering dust in folders labeled anomaly, case unsolved, because you did something they never anticipated. In all their calculations, in all their monitoring, in all their careful documentation of your every move, you evolved mid-observation. You transformed while they were watching, and the cameras caught nothing but static. You became something their instruments weren't calibrated to measure, something their psychology textbooks never warned them about, something that makes every expert they consulted go silent and shake their heads. They're calling emergency meetings about you now. Did you know that? They're pulling double shifts trying to figure out what happened, how you did it, where the shift occurred. Because all their data says you should have broken by now. Every model they ran predicted your surrender. Every analysis pointed to your inevitable collapse. They had charts, graphs, probability matrices, all screaming the same conclusion. This person will crumble within 6 months, within a year, within 2 years maximum. But you didn't. You're still standing. And that terrifies them more than any threat ever could, because it means their entire system is flawed. Their understanding is incomplete. Their power is an illusion. They thought they were scientists studying a specimen, but they were actually prisoners watching their warden through the bars. And they just realized the cage was never locked. Let's talk about what they've been doing, shall we? Let's pull back the curtain on this twisted little operation they've been running with your life as the laboratory. They started small, didn't they? A casual question here, an innocent inquiry there. How are you doing, really? They'd ask with concern dripping from their voices like poison disguised as medicine. They'd watch your social media with the intensity of intelligence agents, screenshotting your posts, analyzing your word choices, tracking your activity patterns, noting when you went silent, documenting when you returned. They built entire timelines of your emotional states, mapped your relationships, cataloged your interests, archived your evolution. They knew your schedule better than you did, because they were watching, always watching, waiting for the crack to appear. The moment of weakness they could exploit, the vulnerability they could weaponize. They sent people into your life. Did you realize that? Not everyone, but enough. Enough to create a network of eyes and ears surrounding you like a surveillance grid made of flesh and fake smiles. Some didn't even know they were being used, just casual acquaintances asked to check in on you, to report back on your mental state, your living situation, your new habits. Others were fully aware, compensated observers playing the long game, befriending you with ulterior motives, asking leading questions designed to extract information, creating situations to test your reactions. They wanted to know your breaking point, your triggers, your fears. They wanted to understand the mechanism of your mind so they could predict your next move, control your trajectory, contain your potential. Because even then, even when they thought you were defeated, they sensed something in you that scared them. A resilience they couldn't quantify, a strength that didn't appear on any test, a core of steel wrapped in what they mistook for softness. So they doubled down. They increased the pressure systematically, scientifically. They isolated you socially, cutting off your support systems one by one with whispered rumors and manufactured drama. They attacked your credibility professionally, planting doubts about your competence, your reliability, your stability. They undermined you emotionally, using people you trusted as delivery systems for psychological warfare disguised as concern. Every move calculated, every attack disguised, every wound inflicted with plausible deniability, and through it all they watched, they recorded, they analyzed. They waited for the data to confirm their hypothesis that you were just another human being, subject to the same breaking points as everyone else, that enough pressure would shatter you like glass, that isolation plus betrayal plus public humiliation plus financial stress plus emotional manipulation would equal surrender. They had the formula. They'd used it before. It always worked. Except this time, it didn't. The data started coming back wrong. You weren't responding according to their models. Where there should have been depression, they found determination. Where there should have been defeat, they found defiance. Where there should have been begging, they found silence. And silence, oh silence, is the most terrifying response of all, because it means the subject has stopped playing the game, has stopped reacting predictably, has entered a state of consciousness the observers cannot penetrate. You went dark in ways that had nothing to do with visibility. You were still present, still functional, still moving through the world, but your inner state became unreadable. You stopped broadcasting your pain, stopped seeking validation, stopped explaining yourself to people who had already decided what they wanted to believe about you. You became a blank screen to their instruments, a void their analysis couldn't penetrate, a mystery that consumed more resources the longer it remained unsolved. Now here's where it gets beautiful. Here's where their obsession turned into their undoing. Because the data they collected on you, all those gigabytes of information, all those documented patterns, all those carefully constructed profiles, it's breaking their brains. Not metaphorically, literally. They're experiencing cognitive dissonance, so severe it's causing actual psychological distress. Because every piece of information contradicts the narrative they built. You were supposed to be broken, but your productivity increased. You were supposed to be isolated, but you built a new network they can't infiltrate. You were supposed to be defeated, but you're achieving things they said were impossible for someone in your position. The numbers don't lie, but the numbers don't make sense. And when reality refuses to match the model, something has to break. Either the model or the mind holding it. They're looking at your transformation and they can't find the turning point. That's what's driving them crazy. They have documentation of every day, every week, every month, and nowhere in that timeline is there a moment that explains how you went from where you were to where you are. It's as if you quantum leaped from one state to another without passing through the intermediate stages their psychology books say are mandatory. Where's the healing period? Where's the recovery phase? Where's the gradual rebuilding they were trained to expect? You just shifted. One day you were someone they recognized, someone who fit their categories, someone they could understand and predict. The next day you were someone else entirely, someone operating on principles they don't have language for, someone who looks at their power games like a chess master watching children play checkers. The data shows the before and the after, but the during is missing. And that missing piece, that gap in their surveillance, that's the void that's swallowing their sanity. 'Cause here's what they can't accept. You didn't heal from what they did to you, you transcended it. You didn't overcome the trauma by processing it through their approved channels of therapy and time and gradual recovery. You alchemized it. You took every betrayal and turned it into boundary-setting wisdom, every loss and turned it into detachment mastery. Every moment of isolation and turned it into self-sufficiency that no longer needs external validation. You didn't become stronger in the way they understand strength, pushing through pain with gritted teeth and visible effort. You became something else. Something lighter and darker simultaneously. Something that carries wounds like weapons and scars like credentials. You didn't survive their attack. You evolved because of it. And evolution doesn't show up on their instruments because evolution isn't a response to trauma, it's a response to opportunity, and you saw opportunity where they intended destruction. They're running the numbers again and again, checking for errors in the data collection, looking for manipulation in the reports, suspecting their own observers of filing false information, because the alternative is too disturbing to accept. The alternative is that you're real, that your transformation is genuine, that someone actually can do what you did, which means their entire understanding of human psychology is incomplete at best and deliberately misleading at worst. They've built careers on the assumption that people are predictable, controllable, breakable, given the right pressure applied in the right ways. You're living proof that assumption is wrong. You're the exception that invalidates their rule. You're the data point that doesn't fit any curve, the result that breaks their statistical models, the outcome that wasn't supposed to be possible. And now, they're stuck. They can't publish their findings because subject displayed anomalous resilience and evolved beyond predictive parameters isn't a conclusion that advances anyone's career. They can't replicate the experiment because they don't understand what variables led to your outcome. They can't even properly categorize what happened because their terminology assumes a framework you've stepped outside of. You're not resilient in the way they define resilience. You're not recovered in the way they define recovery. You're not even traumatized in the way they define trauma anymore. You process the experience through a mechanism they don't have instruments to detect, integrated it through a system they don't have maps for, emerged from it through a door they didn't know existed. And that makes you more than an anomaly. It makes you a threat to every institution built on the assumption that human consciousness operates within known parameters. Let me tell you what's happening to them now. The ones who watched you most closely, the ones who invested the most energy in breaking you, the ones who tied their ego to your collapse. They're not doing well. Some have become obsessed in ways that would concern their own therapists if they were honest in their sessions. They check your profiles multiple times a day, looking for signs of the breakdown they still believe is coming. Any day now, surely it has to happen. People don't just walk away unscathed from what you endured, except you didn't walk away unscathed. You walked away transformed. And scars on a tiger are very different from scars on prey. They are looking for damage and finding danger instead, looking for weakness and finding weaponized experience. Looking for a victim and finding someone who stopped identifying with that role so completely they can't even recognize the signature of past pain anymore. Others have gone quiet, unsettlingly quiet, the kind of silence that comes from having your worldview shattered and not knowing how to rebuild it. They thought they understood how reality worked, thought they knew the rules of the game, thought they had mastered the art of psychological manipulation and social control. Then you did the unthinkable. You changed the game board while they were making their move. You shifted the paradigm while they were celebrating their tactical victories. You redefined the rules while they were counting their points, and now they're sitting there with strategies that no longer apply, holding power that no longer has purchase, wielding influence over a version of you that no longer exists. It's like preparing for chess and discovering your opponent is playing four-dimensional strategy on a board you can't even see. The confusion leads to frustration, frustration leads to obsession, obsession leads to mistakes, and they're making mistakes now. Visible ones, desperate ones, the kind that reveal exactly how much you've gotten under their skin by refusing to react the way they needed you to. Some have started mimicking you. Have you noticed that? They're adopting your language patterns, your behavioral changes, your approach to conflict, or rather your lack of approach, your mysterious absence from drama, your selective unavailability. They're trying to reverse engineer your transformation by copying the external results, not understanding that what you display is just the shadow of internal alchemy they can't see and therefore can't replicate. They think if they act unbothered, they'll become unbothered. If they perform detachment, they'll achieve detachment. If they mirror your energy, they'll access your power. But it doesn't work that way, and it never will, because your power didn't come from technique. It came from annihilation and reconstruction. You didn't learn to be this way. You were forged into it in fires they only observed from a safe distance. They want the crown without the crucifixion, the resurrection without the burial, the transformation without the death of every comfortable illusion. And so they end up as pale imitations, cargo cult practitioners performing rituals they don't understand in hopes of summoning results they'll never achieve. The analysts, the actual professionals who were brought in to assess you, they're having their own crisis, because their reports keep getting rejected by reality. They predicted breakdown within 6 months, you're thriving 3 years later. They identified dependencies you should have, you've proven you need nothing from anyone. They outlined vulnerabilities that should be exploitable, you've sealed every gap and reinforced every boundary until you're effectively untouchable through conventional psychological warfare. Their expertise is being questioned, their methodologies are being reviewed, their confidence is crumbling. Some have admitted in private that they don't know what they're looking at, that your case doesn't fit any existing framework, that you're exhibiting characteristics that shouldn't coexist in a single personality profile. You're showing trauma responses and post-traumatic growth simultaneously, displaying hypervigilance and complete relaxation in the same behavioral patterns, demonstrating social withdrawal and magnetic presence in ways that contradict every model they were taught. You've become the case study that breaks the textbook, the patient that makes the doctor question their training, the subject that invalidates the experiment by refusing to fit the hypothesis. And the beautiful irony is that you didn't do any of this to prove them wrong. You didn't transform out of spite or rebellion. You simply did what was necessary to survive, and discovered that survival at your level of intensity requires becoming something the old frameworks can't classify. You didn't break their models intentionally, you broke them by existing authentically in a frequency they don't have equipment to measure. And now they're left holding broken instruments, outdated maps, and the uncomfortable awareness that they understand far less about human potential than they thought they did. You didn't just escape their cage, you revealed that the cage was always an illusion, maintained by collective agreement to believe in its solidity. And once one person walks through the bars like they're not even there, everyone else has to confront the possibility that they've been prisoners of their own accepted limitations all along. So they're trying to reverse engineer you now, trying to deconstruct your transformation into component parts they can understand, replicate, or neutralize. They want the formula, the secret, the method, the technique. They're reviewing every piece of data, looking for the moment it clicked for you, the book you read, the person you met, the realization you had, the practice you adopted. They're convinced there must be something external they can point to, some intervention that explains your metamorphosis. Because the alternative, that you did this entirely internally with no guru, no system, no method, just raw will and pattern recognition and ruthless self-honesty, that's too threatening to accept. That would mean anyone could do this, that transformation isn't gate-kept by experts and institutions, that power is accessible to anyone willing to pay the real price, which isn't money or time, but the complete death of who you used to be. They're studying your language now, analyzing every word you speak or write, looking for clues to your mental framework. They notice you don't explain yourself anymore. Don't justify your decisions. Don't defend your positions. You read a story, they see this as avoidance or arrogance, not understanding it's actually the ultimate security clearance. When you stop needing to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you, when you stop translating your depth into shallow terms for shallow minds, when you let your actions speak and your results validate you, you become incomprehensible to those still addicted to explanation and approval. They're looking for your philosophy, your beliefs, your worldview, but you're operating from a place beyond belief now, from direct experience that has no need for conceptual frameworks. You're not following principles, you're embodying wisdom. You're not practicing techniques, you're living as the technique. And that's untranslatable, unreplicable, unlearnable through observation alone. They're mapping your social network, trying to understand your support system, looking for the people propping you up, the hidden help that must explain your impossible resilience. But they keep hitting dead ends because you're not being held up by anyone. You're not dependent on external support. You built yourself into a closed system that generates its own energy and maintains its own stability. You have connections, yes, but they're horizontal relationships between equals, not vertical dependencies where you need someone above you to validate your existence. Metamorphosis. Because the alternative, that you did this entirely internally with no guru, no system, no method, just raw will and pattern recognition and ruthless self-honesty, that's too threatening to accept. That would mean anyone could do this, that transformation isn't gate-kept by experts and institutions, that power is accessible to anyone willing to pay the real price, which isn't money or time, but the complete death of who you used to be. They're studying your language now, analyzing every word you speak or write, looking for clues to your mental framework. They notice you don't explain yourself anymore. Don't justify your decisions. Don't defend your positions. You read a story, they see this as avoidance or arrogance, not understanding it's actually the ultimate security clearance. When you stop needing to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you, when you stop translating your depth into shallow terms for shallow minds, when you let your actions speak and your results validate you, you become incomprehensible to those still addicted to explanation and approval. They're looking for your philosophy, your beliefs, your worldview, but you're operating from a place beyond belief now, from direct experience that has no need for conceptual frameworks. You're not following principles, you're embodying wisdom. You're not practicing techniques, you're living as the technique. And that's untranslatable, unreplicable, unlearnable through observation alone. They're mapping your social network, trying to understand your support system, looking for the people propping you up, the hidden help that must explain your impossible resilience. But they keep hitting dead ends because you're not being held up by anyone. You're not dependent on external support. You built yourself into a closed system that generates its own energy and maintains its own stability. You have connections, yes, but they're horizontal relationships between equals, not vertical dependencies where you need someone above you to validate your existence.